Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is the second webinar of 2025 Spring Series on socially engaged arts and advocacy in urban context. My name is Deniz Ünsal, and I'm one of the moderators of today's webinar. And I'm logging in today from the ancestral lands of the Lekwungen-speaking people, Songhees, and Swepsum nations and families, otherwise known as Victoria, BC. And I am an immigrant from Turkey, have been living and working on these lands since 2015, and I teach at Royal Road University in communications. I would like to introduce Taiwo, my collaborator in this initiative. Taiwo, please go ahead, introduce yourselves.
Well, thanks, Denise, and welcome once again. Just to re-echo, we really appreciate the fact that you're here to join us in this on this series. This is the second part of the series, so thank you for joining us. I'm Taiwo Afolabi, joining in from Treaty 4, the homeland of the Anishinaabe, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis and Métis nations. Also known as Regina, here in Saskatchewan, in Canada. I'm with the University of Regina, and I'm the director of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre, where this series is being hosted. And we're really looking forward to having a chat and conversation with you all today. So thank you again, and I'll pass it back to Dennis.
Thank you. So let us give a brief framework for this webinar series. So as researchers and educators, our ongoing connections and relations with multiple urban environments kind of urge us to expand our attention beyond our current location. And when we started with this initiative, with the idea of this initiative, we wanted to expand our interest and, reach out to non-Western contexts, especially different cities, and how, socially engaged arts is taking place, what aims, what formats, and what kind of impact it has. So to effectively confront the inequities and power structures embedded in globalization and neoliberal development, we thought it's critical to understand their specific impact on local communities and grassroots resistance they inspire, and socially engaged arts and culture initiatives and platforms through their community-based practices offer significant insights into these dynamics. So by listening to these actors, engaging with their work, we can document and amplify alternative narratives, identify strategies for structural and policy transformation, and advocate for more inclusive societies and cities. And these community-based, socially engaged art forms serve not only as powerful tools for resistance, but also as critical sources of knowledge that can guide more equitable, community-centered policies and social change initiatives. So based on this kind of idea, we wanted to invite speakers, and a few words about the webinar program. So we'll hear three speakers from three different contexts, cultural contexts, organizations, experiences that have been working with communities and collaborating with different diverse partners at local, sometimes international level. And each will speak for 15 minutes. We planned a Q&A after the last speaker for about 15-20 minutes. You can type your questions in the chat and we'll read them during the Q&A session. We aim to finish around 10:15, 10:30 a.m. PST. It means a different time to all of you. Time difference is very confusing. We're recording this webinar, and it will be shared on our website. You can also find recordings of other webinars there too. We're hoping to build a digital archive collection as this initiative unfolds. I'll let speakers know when they have 5 minutes left. So Without further ado, our first speaker today is Matilde Cervantes Navarrete, member of Global Pax Collective and PhD student at the Center for Global Studies, University of Victoria in BC, very close to me. Matilde is an interdisciplinary researcher and artist who has been curating and producing cultural and artistic events internationally through the Global Pax Collective initiative for almost 2 decades. So the screen is yours, Matilde. Welcome.
Denise, I just want to highlight accessibility interpretation introduction. You want to speak about that?
Yes, so when we have our second speaker who will be presenting in Korean, we have an opportunity to listen to her in English. Thanks to Hyan Jun. So I'll give that prompt when Kyong Ju's turn comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Taiwo. And thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Matilde Cervantes, and I'm joining from the territories of the Guaycuras, Jucapas, and Pericues, Bay of La Paz in Mexico. And that's why I'm sweating, and I have sun on my face, and I have this medicine from my friend Rebecca, who I see is also joining us here, and this shirt from my mom, and just feeling so warm in so many levels, and so grateful to be with all of you here to share some of the thoughts and experiences from Canadian and Mexican artists who are resisting, who are feeling more empowered and sharing dreams to revitalize and resist some injustices, but also keep the celebratory component in some ways. And I'm gonna start my presentation because I know 15 minutes can go so quickly. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna just confirm that you are seeing this. Is that correct?
Yes, we see it.
Excellent. Okay. The title for my presentation is Social Transformation Through Arts-Based and Indigenous Worldviews, Live Experiences from Canada and Mexico. And I almost want to say from the Anahuaca territories or from the Turtle Island, but that's part of those transformations that we want to see and we are working on. And in terms of the global component, I want to invite all of you to feel how we are all sharing tensions, challenges, and in that regards, if we can all think about how globally we are facing environmental challenges, no matter where you are, we all are experiencing the impacts of global warming, air and water pollution, loss of biodiversity, waste management, deforestation, and so many others that are just creating changes and unstable lifestyles. And that's why when I was in my PhD program, thinking on all these challenges and trying to find frameworks that can help us to look for solutions, but also to innovate, I, I found this concept of planetary health. And planetary health is an approach that considers the interdependence between the elements and living beings like plants, animals, including humans. And this framework emphasizes the importance of cultivating a positive ecosystem to support the flourishing of all forms of life. This concept academically for scholars was coined in 2015. But then I was like, this is actually not so innovative. This is not new. Indigenous people have been talking about this for millennia. And so then I started to reflect we don't need to innovate. We need to go back to those paradigm and cosmovision cosmologies who have been doing the work right for many years. And so I invited my friends and new members and all members from the Global Pax Collective to embark in this co-research project, community-based project. And we are doing it through the platform of Global Pax Collective, which is an international group of creative artists, scientists, activists, educators, all of them creative humans, and the art piece is very much at the core of this collective. We have the mission to promote peace and healthy human development through the arts. We have been, as Rebecca mentioned it, more than 20 years working together with different iterations and different groups of people. But then trying to fit and put all this together, all these things together, the Global Pax Collective, the planetary health framework, I just found recently about this concept of pluriverses. And I want to point it out because I want to invite you to explore more this post development concept that can make an invitation for us to think about the diversity and how we can have not just one universe, but we can have many universes working together and welcome that diversity. Uh, that's almost like a full presentation, but the invitation is there for you to explore more this concept and reflect about it. So the arts as arts-based research, arts-based project, we often and recently we will hear more about this arts-based component in the academia or in community projects. Um, but I want to point it out that for us, the view of arts based is as a paradigm, which means we as Global Pax Collective are working with the planetary health paradigm, and it existed in methods, in the methodologies, in the community engagement, in the outcomes, in the creative processes. So the arts are embedded in all the pieces or stages of our process. These photos are from one of our community sessions where we work with art. But art, as I'm saying, it's present in all the stages because it's a holistical part of what we are doing. Regarding Mexico and Canada, why Mexico and Canada? Well, as Denise was saying, I am Mexican, I'm studying in Canada, and I have been observing how we have so many things in common, but we have also unique approaches. And if we think about the pluriverses, we are maybe different universes, but we are sharing universes as well. Mexico and Canada have a strong bilateral cooperation and have created, indeed, the two governments, a Mexico Canada action plan, which includes prioritizing collaborative work on climate change, public health, collaboration through the arts, collaboration for health, and also collaboration between indigenous peoples of both countries. And I just want to share something very quickly that I have been observing also. When we talk about migration, for example, and the roots, we always think about Mexican people migrating towards Canada. But I want you to also think that migration also happens from north to south. But because of colonization and oppressive mindsets, we think in words like, oh, may immigrants from Mexico, the newcomers, the immigrants, the workers, the farmers. And then when we think of the other migration, the other direction from north to south, we think about the expats, snowbirds, and you can start seeing how these terminologies change depending of the approach, if it's north to south or south to north, and that's revealing some of the injustices. And I will leave it there because I know you are smart people who can start connecting the dots. So I want to show you this map of Mexico, and I just want you to let you know, because we always often think about the migration from south to north. But just for you to have some data, over 50,000 Canadians are living in Mexico. 2.4 millions visited Mexico in 2024. So the mind of the local, the global, the regional is very present, and we can start thinking about how this impacts gentrification, lifestyle, how it's changing and transforming things. We can revisit that later. So the particular project that I'm sharing about has different objectives, but for this presentation, I want to share with you that we are aiming to co-create a Mexico-Canada planetary health agenda, and we are hoping to host an art exhibition at the Open Space Gallery in Victoria in 2026. All the results from those collaborative, and a cultural exchange happening are going to be shared with the community through an art exhibition. The international project is being co-designed through existing partnership. It's hundreds of people are involved to make this possible. But there is a cohort around of 8, 10 people who are in that at the center as the cohort of artists who are creating. These two photos that I'm showing you, it's one of the pilot projects we had. And the first photo talks about the rising tides and the climate change and how the waters on the ocean are going to start like taking more land and how that is impacting. We have the artist Lindsay Delaron in this photo, and the photo was taken by California. Mia Stel, who is from Mexico, one of the youth members of our collective. And the second photo is also from California, and it was in the Pachida territory where we went and did some body painting and brought some processes of grief because of deforestation, but also some processes of celebration of how life always finds a way to stay alive, right? So, working together, we are identifying emerging priorities around climate justice and health equity in the West Coast region of North America. And we are doing this through cultural exchanges with an art based paradigm and indigenous worldviews. In terms of indigenous worldviews, I will touch more on that, but I want to tell you right now, I'm just coming out from the Summit of Planetary Health, which means I'm very fresh in all the content. We just hosted this event April 8 to 14, which is just a few days ago. This image is a poster from the event, and it was designed by a local artist, the illustrator Gabriela Jimenez, or Gaviota Quantica, who is also working in different illustrations to do activism about different topics of environmental issues in La Paz, particularly. Where is La Paz? La Paz is right at the bottom of this peninsula of Baja California Sur in Mexico. Many people know maybe Los Cabos because of the tourists, but La Paz is 2 hours from Los Cabos and is in this beautiful place with huge biodiversity, very rich and lots of endemic of flora and fauna that we have and we are trying to protect in the Gulf of California. And the Gulf of California, it's a very unique place. You can also research more about it and getting in love as I am. It's known also as the oasis, as the aquarium of the world.
5 more minutes, Matilde.
Thank you. So we are just coming out from this summit, and it enhances reciprocal relationships, knowledge sharing, cultural exchange. The summit hosted different events and creative activities on the themes of climate action and planetary health. We were hosted by different local members, including Elsa de la Paz and Francisco, who is a medicine man. We had also an academic component, and some of the indigenous guests also spoke about the art and how it is in relationship with climate change and our topics. Arts-based paradigms and indigenous worldviews are at the roots and are the compasses or the lenses of our work. And with this, it's very holistic. I don't need to explain that the traditional practices have organically including music, poetry, dance, storytelling, art installations. They are part of this without the fragmentation, separation, or a specialization of different mediums of art. It's all as part of one, as we are one human and we have all of that in us. So the transformation in collectivism and pluriversus paradigms at the front are acknowledging the interactions between the global and the local influences, bringing then the concept of global, local to the front. Art serves as both cultural expression and powerful tool for advocacy, activism, and community empowerment. Art is often more closely linked to community activism and historical and ongoing struggles with gender inequality, identity politics, political repression, poverty, colonial legacies, and environmental justice. This text is actually from the invitation that I received, and I was like, oh my God, all of this is a great fit. This is what we are doing. And in this photo, we have Mexican and two Canadian artists who were doing a presentation like a lecture in a classroom in a university. But as part of their presentation, they were using their drums, their rattles, their voices, their poetry, their storytelling, because it's embedded, as I am saying, in the work that we are doing. It's not just like academic playing as we may know. Finally, I want to invite you to explore a podcast that is part of this project, and you can find it in Apple Podcast, Spotify, and it's part of this social engaged art that illuminates the experiences of marginalized voices and offers a platform for storytelling and community building. So please check it out, or maybe Denise and Taiwo can share the link later, and you can get to know more about the project, but also get to know more about the voices of many of the participants, because also our voices inside the collective are very plural, very diverse. Like diversity inside the diversity is indeed part of this. And finally, I want to say thank you for this invitation. It's very hard for me to summarize all the work that we're doing, all the dreams that we're having, but I just want to reconfirm with you that arts base is a great tool, not just for social change, for transformation, which is different. We are not trying to change, we are actually trying to transform. And transform, it's different, it's powerful. It's part of that resisting and revitalization that we are working on. So I invite you to explore the difference between social change and social transformation, and how the arts are playing a key role in this work that is collective, but is also important in the local and the global. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Matilde. I think you're really working on wonderful things, and you're really bringing the local global, and it's very relevant for other contexts as well, what you're telling us. And it really shows that, socially engaged arts really addresses all these local issues that are relevant for communities, but relevant also globally. I'd like to ask you, please, to perhaps share the links of the podcasts or any other links you have. It's on our website, but if it's not on our website, if there are other resources, feel free to share them in the chat, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so our second speaker is Kyong Ju. She's a voice sculptor, a multidisciplinary artist, and representative of Salad Theater in Seoul. Kyong Ju will be presenting in Korean, and today Hyan Jun will be doing the simultaneous interpretation in English. You'll see under your screen an icon to switch from Korean to English. So you can click, and then you'll see that there is an option for English. That is the English translation. Okay, so without further ado, Kyong Ju, welcome. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. So I will try to present my presentation in Korean. So because I'm always worried about my pronunciation. So thank you for accepting me to speak in Korean. Thank you. I will start my presentation. So, oops. Yes. 저는 그 다문화 연극과
I'm involved in
그다음에
multicultural
그
theater
문화 생산
and
주체의 그
diversity
다양화로
of
인해서 벌어지는 그 여러 가지 그
producers,
현상들과
multicultural
그들에 대한
producers.
대안을
So
중점적으로
I'm
이번에 그
today's
발표에
topic is mainly focused
그
on
다뤄보도록 하겠습니다.
the agendas related to those things.
네.
So firstly,
먼저
I'd
제
like to
소개를
introduce myself.
하겠습니다. 저는
My name is Park
박경주이고요.
Kyong Ju,
저는 이제
and
목소리
I consider
조각가라는
myself
타이틀을
a
제가
voice
스스로 저에게
sculptor.
이제
That
만들었어요.
title
왜냐하면
is
그
created
전에는 뭐
by myself.
다원예술가,
Before,
시각예술가, 뭐
previously, I was the
영화감독,
film director and
연극
visual
연출 뭐
artist
여러
and the
가지로
theater director.
이름들을 막 불리다
I had
보니까
multiple
기본적으로 제가
titles.
그동안
But
해오는 작업들이
I'm
뭐랄까
thinking
고민을
about
많이
what kinds
했는데
of activities
저는
I
주로
have
소외계층이나
taken so
사회적
far.
약자와
Actually, I'm
작업을
working with
해왔거든요.
the socially
그래서
marginalized people,
저는 그 사람들, 그
and
사회적인
so
약자의
I
그
think the
목소리들이
voices of the
그
socially
사회의 공공의 영역에
marginalized
잘
people should
전달이
be
되도록 하는
conveyed to the
일종의
public realm,
조각가이구나라는
and
결론을 내렸어요. 그래서
I'm
저
actually
자신을
the sculptor of
목소리
those
조각가라고 부르게
voices. I
되었습니다.
think I consider myself as
네,
the
이제
voice
그 오늘
sculptor.
주제는 저희
So
극단의
today's topic is
그서
focused on
해결하고자 하는
social
사회
issues that
문제와
our
저희
theater
극단이
company
그 문제를
tries
풀기
to
위해서 어떤
address
방법을
and how to
택했는지를
resolve those
먼저 설명을
social
드리겠습니다.
issues.
예, 샐러드
The Salad
극단은
Theater Company,
이름은 저희 이름은
the
샐러드인데요.
my theater
샐러드는
company is
샐러드 본
called
이라는 그
salad.
개념에서
This
왔어요.
salad
저희가
is
이제 다문화
based
사회를
on the concept
이야기할
of a
때
salad
샐러드처럼
bowl.
이렇게
So if you
다양한
can
그
see
채소들이 서로
multiple
어우러져서 그
ingredients in a
혀과 같이
salad,
살아있는 것을
and
이야기하거나 아니면
those
그 멜팅이라 그래서 녹아서 그
ingredients are
정체성이 사라지는
melted,
것들
and
이렇게 두
actually
가지를 주로 많이
and
한국에서도
some
이야기하고 있는데
identity.
저는 이제 예술가로서
And there is
샐러드
also
볼이라는
the
개념을 더
concept of
좋아하기
melting
때문에
pot, but
저희 이제
I
극단의
prefer the
이름을
concept of salad
샐러드라고
bowl
짓게
because
되었습니다.
the
저희
distinct
극단에서는
characteristics
이제
of each
이름을
ingredient
보시면
are very
아시겠지만 저희
live in a
극단은
salad.
2009년에 그 이주민들
And
국내 그 한국에서
in
거주하고 있는
my theater
이주민들이
company,
그 문화적인 거나 사회적인
my
목소리를
people,
내기 위한
my
창구로서
immigrant
저희 극단이 필요하지
people
않을까 해서
in
만들게
our
됐고요.
company
저희는
actually
주로 그
produce the regular
퍼포먼스를 정기 공연을
performances,
하기도
and
하는데
my
저희의 주된
major
사업은
company,
그
my
전국에
major
있는 소외 지역, 문화
the
소외 지역에서 저희 공연을
activities is to
보여주면서
show
문화
our
향유를 그
performances
소외
in
지역에 주기도
culturally
하고
deprived
저희 극단에 참여하는
areas, and
이주민
we
예술가들이
also created
자신들의
the jobs
그
for our
예술가로서의
migrant
일자리를
artists. That is
갖게 하는
our
것이 저희
the
극단의
main
주된 목적이에요. 그래서 저희는 찾아가는 공연을 굉장히 많이
activity. So
해왔습니다.
we
그렇게
went
해서
on a
저희가
tour,
2009년부터
and we
그
have reached
현재까지
100,000
만난 관객이
thousand
전국에 10만
audiences
명
across the
정도가 됩니다.
country.
근데 이
And
대부분은 10만 명
we
중에
visited
대부분은 저희가
multicultural hub
찾아갔던
schools,
다문화 거점
and
학교나 공공기관 내서
the
만난
people living in the
관객들이에요.
culturally deprived
그리고 저희는
areas.
또 그 이주민과 그 아동이나
So
청소년을
we also
위해서
provided
그
free
무료 워크숍,
cultural
문화예술 워크숍을
workshops.
하는 것을 주요
And
사업으로 또
our
삼고
performance
있고요.
agenda is
저희
the
공연의
multicultural
주제는
issues which are
한국에서
happening in
벌어지고 있는
Korea.
다문화
So we
문제에
are trying
관련된
to show
실제
the
현실을
reality of
보여주는
multiculturalism
연극을
in Korea.
만들고
And
있고
all of
그것이
our
이제
production works are creative
저희가
works.
만들었던 건 다
So to
창작물입니다.
demonstrate the
예. 저희가 이제 한국의 현실을
reality
보여주기
of a Korean
위해서는
society, we had to
새롭게 창작을 하지 않으면
create
안
our own
되겠어서 저희는 이제
productions.
창작을
So
해서
we did so.
작품을 보여줬어요.
And my theater company,
그 저희 극단이
and there are multiple
그 파악하고 있는 이제 제가 대표로서 저희 극단을 만들 때
there
파악하고
are
있는
multiple
그 여러
issues that
가지
we
사회
would like
문제가
to
있는데 이제 크게 네
address through
가지로
our
볼 수가 있을 것
projects.
같아요.
The first one
먼저
is a
다문화
multicultural
관련된
issue
문제,
and othering,
그다음에
and
이주민들의
then
타자화,
art
그러니까 그 어떤
labor.
문화 주체가 아니라
I have
타자화되는
been
것,
working as an
그다음에
artist
예술
for
노동의
a long
문제도
time.
제가
So how
예술가로서
to
오랫동안
recognize the
활동했기 때문에
importance of
예술가의
artists is
노동이
very
사회적,
significant to
경제적으로
us.
어떻게 가치를
And our
인정받을 수
the
있는
theater
것이
company,
굉장히
my theater
중요했어요.
company is the
왜냐하면
artistic
샐러드는
art
극단이잖아요.
organizations, and
그리고 저희
the migrant
극단에서
people
활동하는
are
사람들은
artists.
예술가이기
So
때문에
they have to
저희 극단에서
they have to be
활동하는
recognized
이주민 분들이
as
그
artists, and
활동이
then
예술
they have
활동으로서
to
인정을
earn
받고
money through their
경제적인
artistic
대가를 가져가는
activities.
것도
So the art
굉장히
labor is one of the
중요하다고
key
생각했기
agenda item
때문에
that we would
저희가
try to
풀고자 하는
address.
숙제 중에 하나에 예술 노동의 문제도 들어가 있습니다. 그다음에
And
그
still
문화 소외
in Korea,
계층이 문화
there
향유를
are
하지
many
못하는 것들이
culturally
아직 한국에서도 굉장히 지역으로
underprivileged
가면 많이
people. They
있는데요.
couldn't
그런
enjoy
부분들
the
문화 향유를
culture
잘
and
하지
arts
못하는
activities.
자체도
So
받지
we
못하는 향유를 즐기기
also
어려운
wanted to
그런
address
族群들에
the issue
대한
too.
문제들에 대해서도 저희가 풀고자 했습니다.
Firstly,
네. 지금 첫
there is
번째로는
the
이제
multicultural
저희가
issue,
그 다문화
the issue
이슈가
of the
있겠어요. 근데 이거는
multiculturalism.
이제
So I'd like to show the
먼저 그래프를
graph.
좀 보여드리는데요.
Our
저희
theater
극단이
company was founded
2009년에
in
만들어졌어요.
2009, and
그
you can
왼쪽에
see the
보면
chart of
2009년에 차트가
2009.
있는데 거기
And
보면 이제
so
왼쪽에
the
그린
green
컬러가
color
그
on the left
전체 그 당시
side chart
2009년에
shows
한국에
the
거주하는 이주민들의 숫자이고요. 그 오른쪽에 빨간 막대가 그 중에서 아시아
Sorry, Kyong Ju, I think we cannot see the slides advancing.
어?
Yeah, mine. Yeah, I've actually sent them. I've sent messages to both of them, and we need to just to move the slide to the next page.
Now you can see that?
No, we can't. We only see the first
did.
one.
I don't know. Wait, I will try once more.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's okay. So
Great, we
now-
can see it now. Yes,
Great, we can see it now.
now.
Yes, we can see the
that
slide now.
page.
Yes, we can see that page.
So 다시
So let me speak
얘기할게요. 그
again.
다문화 관련된
So
이슈를
regarding the
이제
multicultural
말씀드리기
issues,
위해서
I
여기 두 가지
would like to
그래프를
show these two
보여드리는데
graphs.
여기 왼쪽에
So you
있는
can
건
see the
2009년에
graph of the
한국에
total
거주하는
numbers
이주민의
of
그
immigrants and the
통계고요.
number of Asian
오른쪽은
immigrants in
2023년
2009,
가장
and
최신
you can
지금
see the graph of
검토돼서
2023
공개적으로
on the right
나온
side.
자료인
So
건데요.
you can
이렇게 해서
see these
이주민의
numbers.
숫자가
So the total number of
2009년부터
immigrants in
15년
Korea
정도
has
되는데
doubled
거의
within
두 배로
15
늘어난 걸 볼
years
수
in
있고요.
Korea. Still,
여전히
the
빨간색인
most
아시아
of
출신의
the
이주민이
immigrants are
대다수라는
the
것을
Asian
알 수 있습니다.
descent in Korea.
네, 그래서 이 이주민
And there are multicultural issues that migrant people are
다문화
experiencing
문제는
in Korea, and I think there is the uniqueness of Korea here. There are many Asian migrants in Korea, so the discrimination against the foreigners in Korea cannot be reduced just to skin color issue here. Rather, Korea is
그래서 오히려 한국이라는 국가가
actually in 1988, Korea started to embrace foreigners. So it was very late compared to other countries because it was 1988, especially because Korea was a mono-ethnic country. So I think because of the cultural shock that Korean people can feel when they encounter the foreigners, I think it was the embracing foreigners in Korea was very late. So we are focused on creating Asian art productions. So, but it was the Korean, the Asian artistic materials are very rare in Korea. So we leveraged the network of Asian people that we had, and we also received some advices from some experts that we know. And there are some accidents which occurred in Korea related to Asian people. So we actually closely investigated the real stories happening in Korea. And through the theater, through the plays, we consider the most important thing is that the migrant people themselves are involved in productions. So that it is the key of salads when we try to address multicultural issues. So I'd like to introduce some creations, and these are the musicals. Actually, we created nine musicals based on Asian stories. The one left is about Mongolia, and the other one is about Indonesia. So the second generation of Mongolian family was raised in Korea. So he thought consider himself Korean, but his parents were undocumented migrants, so he had to go back to his hometown, Mongolia. So then he felt that he was a foreigner in his hometown. So we used that real life story. And his parents also worked together with us to create this performance. And we also learned the Mongolian dances from them. And the right side, the performance on the right side is based on the Indonesian story. And the name Dayung Sampan is Indonesian, and it is from the Indonesian folk song. So we have used the Indonesian folk song to create this performance. And this story is also created based on the advice from Indonesian artists. And the next performance is based on the actual incident which occurred in Korea. These two performances, are based on the actual incidents which occurred in Korea. The first one, Lan's Diary, is about a migrant woman who came to Korea through international marriage arrangement that
Five
resembled
more
human
minutes,
trafficking.
Kyong Ju.
Actually,
More minutes,
that
Kyong Ju.
migrant woman took her life after coming to Korea. And the second one is based on the fire incident which occurred in Korea. And there is the next issue is othering. And we enabled migrant people in our theater company to play key roles beyond being acting. So that is the solution that we came up with to resolve the issue of othering within our theater group. And in Korea, there are many human rights infringement cases in Korea. Actually, some people couldn't receive their wages, and there are sexual harassment and sexual violence issues because migrant people are marginalized in society, so they faced such challenges. And especially the South Korean government has yet to rectify the UN covenant to the cultural and economic rights. But we enrolled in industrial accident insurances, and we also signed off the contract with the migrant artists, and we also made them enroll in travel insurance when we go on tour. And next issue is a cultural inequality issue. Actually, migrant artists in our theater company haven't had training or the cultural artistic education in their hometown. So we provided such opportunities for them to have education in Korea. And they also couldn't have opportunity to watch the performances. So we provided free performances for them to watch. But actually, we couldn't provide our performances for free. So we actually partnered with the corporate bodies, so the large companies. So we received their investment, and then we provided the free performances for the socially deprived people. And I'd like to make some proposals. So if you see this presentation, you can see the number of people who have arts and entertainment visa acquisition. So there were a total of 4,167 people in 2009, and there are a total of 4,711 people in 2023. And you can see that the representation of other continents than Asian has grown rapidly. And the hot potato in Korea now is there is actually wage discrimination against the foreigners here, and especially the migrants people cannot speak Korean well, so they had many challenges. So I believe that the Korean government needed to enable the migrant people to get benefit from the Artistic Welfare Act. I think that is the biggest thing that they have to address. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyong Ju, and thank you, Hyan Jun, for this translation. You made it possible for us to follow. Kyong Ju, it's really interesting that you're raising points about the labor relations, the structural problems that artists with immigrant background face in Korea. It is often something we don't hear about, especially knowing, how popular culture, is popular worldwide coming from Korea. So this is an interesting aspect. Thank you for introducing that to us. Okay, so we're now going to move to our final speaker, Serkan Taycan. He's an artist and PhD candidate in the Azrieli School of Architecture and Urbanism at Carleton University, visual artist, curator with academic background in photojournalism and engineering, and someone I know from my previous life. So thank you. Nice to have you here, Serkan.
Sorry. Hi everyone. How's my sound? Is it okay? Okay. So yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, everyone. And yeah, thanks Deniz and Taiwo organizing this event. And yeah, as Deniz mentioned, we've been doing some and interesting projects together in Istanbul and collaborating for in the cultural life in Istanbul. So after almost a decade, I believe. So meeting again here is so nice for me, and thanks for this invitation. So as Deniz mentioned, I'm a PhD candidate in Carleton University in Ottawa, in Canada, at the Architecture and Urbanism Department. But I'm based in Istanbul. But now, as I'm traveling, I'm in New York City. So so that's where I am meeting with you today. So let me, without further ado, jump into my slides. Okay, so let me share the screen. Share desktop. Do you see?
Yes.
Yes.
And is it advancing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then we can start. So, the title of my presentation is Between Two Seas, Walking Against Bulldozing on the Periphery of a Global Megacity. It's about the urban imagination of an infrastructure project and an artistic activist response to it. Okay, so infrastructure projects, let's briefly mention, have been widely used as tools for generating political power, hegemony, and consent. These projects not only serve as symbols of power and authority, but also emerge as elements that fuel social conflicts. However, various resistance movements have also emerged in response to the social and ecological damage caused by these projects. So today I will discuss two projects that are interconnected but positioned in opposition. The first is Kanal Istanbul, a dystopian mega construction project located on the outskirts of Istanbul. And the second is Between Two Seas, a walking trail following the same geographical line and an art and resistance project developed as a response to it. In my presentation, I will address the complex relationship between these two projects in their political, ecological, and historical contexts. I will also explore how creative action, in particular the creation of a walking trail, can be used as a form of resistance against projects like Kanal Istanbul, which harbor uncertainties and create irreversible effects. So my aim is to examine how creative action can offer new perspectives in urban debates around fantasies, especially mega infrastructure projects. So can we develop fresh insights into urban and infrastructure issues through creative actions? So specifically, what potential does the creation of walking trails and counter mapping hold in these discussions? So let's also give a brief information about Istanbul and the urbanization happening around there. So since the early 2000s, Istanbul, with a population of around 16 million, has become a contender as a global megacity within the shifting dynamics of the international economy. The peripheries of the city have experienced a sweeping spatial and social transformation through large-scale construction projects. Numerous housing developments around the city were built on private and public initiatives. At the same time, projects on much larger scales and budgets were also introduced and launched. These large-scale initiatives are often referred to as mega projects and comprise long-term developments that involve a budget of over $1 billion with extensive social and ecological impacts. So in this diagrams, you see like the expansion of Istanbul in a decade, around a decade, and the population during 1930s was around 1 million. And in 2000, the last image in around 2020s, let's say, it was expanded to 16 million, so 16 times more in a century. So among these mega projects, perhaps the most controversial one is the Kanal Istanbul, Channel Istanbul or Kanal Istanbul. Kanal Istanbul is the official name. Promoted as a transformative development project. The canal threatens to irreversibly damage Istanbul's natural ecosystems, disrupt water basins, and displace local communities, while intensifying land speculation and urban sprawl. In 2011, the then Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced this mega infrastructure project as an electoral pledge. It was described by him as Çılgın Proje, which is literal translation to English is crazy project, without much information or context, especially in the first years following the announcement on where and how it will be built. Sorry, especially in the first years following the announcement on where and how it will be built. Details were dribbled out after years of speculation, much of which itself has been the subject of huge debate and uncertainty. So the project aims to connect the Black Sea and the Marmara Sea, Marmara Sea a part of Mediterranean Sea, by constructing a sea-level shipping waterway on the European side of Istanbul. The project's primary objective is to create an alternative passage to Bosphorus. Thus, it was presented as a solution to the congested shipping traffic in the strait and as a revenue generator from tariffs on vessels transiting through the canal. However, the project scope extends beyond the canal itself. The new Istanbul Airport, the North Marmara Highway, and the canal constitute a large-scale urbanization project, with new settlements planned on both sides of the waterway. In addition, a port, highway, road and railway bridges, congress center, culture and tourism facilities, commercial zones, and recreational areas are also being added to the project. So the length of the proposed canal is, in the final version of the environmental impact assessment report, it is approximately 45 kilometers with a width of 300 meters and a depth of 20 meters. This new Bosphorus will transform a large part of the residential areas on the European side into an artificial island and create new focal points to the north and west of the existing metropolitan area. Although earlier projections indicated that approximately 1.2 million people would inhabit these newly developed areas, currently the official estimates articulate a maximum of 600,000 people as the incoming population after the completion of the project. So although the Canal Istanbul is an infrastructure project, it undoubtedly serves political purposes as well. It facilitates the expansion of political hegemonic space by creating economic value and fostering a cult of leadership. So as Guy Debord has noted, the world of commodities has now transformed from being just a world of things into a world of images. The canal's construction is intended to expand the hegemonic space through this envisioned world of images. The estimated cost of the canal is highly uncertain, obviously, with estimates ranging between $15 to $65 billion. The anticipated employment and economic impacts expected to be generated during construction form a significant economic motivation for building the canal. However, environmental concerns loom large over the project. It entails the conversion of 83 million square meters of land for development and construction, while eradicating over 100 million square meters of agricultural land. I'm not going to go through all this number, but let's see. As a result of the canal construction, the river along the proposed canal will be filled with salt water, and two of the city's major water reservoirs will be vulnerable to saltwater infiltration. Additionally, scientists highlight further potential unforeseeable side effects of creating second waterway between the two seas, distinct from the Bosphorus, considering the strait's delicate ecosystem of currents. So as Istanbul-based urban geographer Jean-François Pérouse has argued, the Canal Istanbul project appears a top-down initiative conceived in Ankara, digitally visualized and forcefully imposed on the local landscape. It embodies an opaque planning, design, and implementation process. It dismisses the local characteristics and qualities in favor of a dystopian approach. So in essence, the Canal Istanbul serves as a deceptive, misleading apparatus. And the canal project typifies the use of mega construction initiatives as vehicles for urbanization and economic growth. So let's move on from the canal to the Between Two Seas. So Between Two Seas as the walking trail that forms the other focus of this presentation. It narrates and examines the urban and ecological transformation in the peripheries of Istanbul. In 2013, I conceived Between Two Seas as an art and activism project, aiming to facilitate discussions on the implications, reasons, and consequences of canal. The walking trail follows the projected line of the canal, with an aim to provide a platform for asserting participants the right to the city, and to offer several points of reference for observing the urban conditions and transformations extending beyond the city. The core of Between Two Cities initiative is that it takes place in the peripheries of Istanbul, and it adopts walking, a simple act that can take on both very collective and very individual characters as its primary method. The origin of the project traces back to documentary photography project titled Shell, which I carried out between 2010 and 2013. At the time, a significant amount of construction was taking place on the periphery of the city. Therefore, I wanted to witness, capture, and share the ongoing transformation. In the production phase of this photography project, I took long walks in the outskirts of the city while capturing photographs to understand better the breadth of the urban transformation. While doing that, I realized walking allowed a slow and in-depth experience of a particular geography and would therefore be a compelling method for comprehending the breadth of the transformation. Walking was a profound bodily and tangible experience of fieldwork and research in motion, while making possible a first-hand observation of the urban transformation. This practice arose a response to the Gezi Park movement, which itself had originated from a critique of the recent urban change in Istanbul, increasing the motivation to share these experiences with a broader audience. With that aim, and by the adaptation of walking as method, Between Two Cities emerged as a participatory art project and a platform for activism, resistance, confrontation, and empowerment. It took a critical approach to challenge historical and social political discourses that have been shaping the existing urban form. The total length of the trail is 62 kilometers, and it consists of 4 sections, approximately 15 kilometers. Layer by layer, the trail progresses from the outermost periphery of the city towards its center. It passes through several sites, such like shanty towns, industrial areas, social housing projects, where Istanbul transformation and growth can be observed. Along the route,
Serkan.
4, right? Okay, great. Along the route are places of cultural and historical significance, such as archaeological settlements and heritage sites. So this way, it creates an opportunity for those walking the trail get an idea about the ecological, spatial, and social impact that the canal could create, and to get involved in political discussions. So the discussions about the canal began in 2011, actually. Then nearly 30 years from 2000, or even 14 years actually, have passed since the first walks in Between Two Seas took place in 2013. During this period, Kanal Istanbul has become one of Turkey's most significant and defining political debates. Its importance has fluctuated over time in relation to various international and regional dynamics, such as the ongoing war in Ukraine and the Syrian civil war. But the debate over its construction has never ceased and continues to this day. During this process, approximately 1,500 people walked the trail. These walks have contributed to a participatory archive comprising more than 20,000 photographs and video recordings. Additionally, numerous exhibitions have been organized, featuring multimedia maps and models that provide a multidimensional analysis of the region's spatial transformation over more than a decade. In general terms, Between Two Seas adopts an approach that mediates between the macro and micro level of relations, documentations, and analysis of urban dynamics. On the one hand, the macro level elements relate the extension of political and economic pressures to different types of peripheries that Between Two Seas passes through. On the other hand, the project's micro level considerations largely rest on its emphasis on the production of local, experiential, practical, and context-based knowledge of the traverse space. Essentially, these two distinct scales of observation coincide and became noticeable in the periphery and through the act of walking. Walking, adopted as a method of observation, documentation, and inquiry in the context of the project, provides the mediation between the large-scale political and economic dynamics of urban change and the perceptibility of its social spatial effects on everyday life. It also forms the foundation for the project's participatory and performative nature, which are instrumental in creation of a walk's own social spatial interactions. Walking provides a focus on the process rather than the end product, aiming at social mobilization and exploring new ways of debating and engaging through artistic production. Between Two Seas, as a socially engaged participatory art practice, facilitates the blurring of art and life through walking, and by taking its practice to the periphery, brings the urban experience of the modern individual into question. Walking on the periphery strengthens one's understanding of contemporary urban change and the breadth, form, and dynamics of exploitation. I argued that this approach helps to understand and interpret the new forms of post-industrial city and its multi-layered and scale transformations for citizens. Ultimately, Between Two Seas underscores collaboration, co-creation, and the transformative potential of art to alter public perceptions and challenge social inequalities. In the context of urban activism, participatory art can serve as a tool for resistance, using creative methods to engage with power structures and advocate for social and spatial justice. Thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you, Serkan. This is all very familiar, and I think it's also very relevant for many mega cities where urban development, gentrification, mega projects are very common. And yeah, thank you for sharing that all with us. I
Thank
think
you.
now we're going to move to the question and answer session, and I will invite Taiwo to moderate that session, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to ask Madi and then just bring you all to the spotlight here so that we can have a quick conversation with your presentation.
There's one question already in the chat, I see.
Yes, and I think I might just start with that. So there is a question already for Madi, and I would also say that the question I want to also stretch it. I think it has some some connection to some of the things that the three speakers have presented. And the question is really around, so what is the role of traditionally white arts and theater nonprofit organization to support this global transformation locally? The question is for Madi, but I want to strike that by asking for Kyong Ju and Serkan to think about partnership within your own context. What does that look like? So, so I think we'll start with Madi, and then I'll pass the baton on to Kyong Ju, and then to Serkan. So for both of you, might be just thinking about partnership and the support with the kind of project and the work that you're doing in your context. So Madi, do you want to start us off with your response to that question? An amazing presentation by the three of you. Thank you for giving us that case study. So over to you, Madi.
Thank you, Taiwo, and thank you, Serkan and Kyong Ju, for sharing also your knowledge so generously. Thank you, everyone. And this is a great question. It really touches on the power of the arts and specifically the power of theater, which is a very important medium because it also uses many other mediums like sound producer, lighting, storytelling, customs, dressing, many other mediums are part of it. So, what is the role of traditionally white arts and theater nonprofit organization to support this global transformation locally? I want to point it out that the role of the arts sometimes when it comes from nonprofits, we have different levels: grassroots, NGOs, private businesses, entrepreneurs, independent artists. But I will say the fast answer that comes to my mind is related to bring in social justice approaches, create more space for diverse voices, to do the work, which means a lot, to have more dialogue. And usually we see EDI initiatives and these type of strategies. But I also want to point it out, it is not enough. Because historically, the mainstream in the arts, the social arts, especially nonprofits who are supported with public money. So there is governmental frameworks already, and we need to be aware that that comes usually from frameworks of dominant views that are usually oppressive, controlling, and extractive. That we have patriarchy and capitalism, or for example, in Latin America, neoliberalism is present, and all of that impacts and shapes things differently because there is a power dynamics very much present. So we need to have critical mind to keep these things on the radar. And for the local to the local, my answer that is not very superficial, it goes deeper, but you need to do the work. It's around interconnectedness. If it's white arts, red arts, yellow arts, rainbow arts, everything is interconnected. What we are doing, it's impacting us all. And so I want to, in the balance of these dominant views, where is autonomy, sovereignty, self-determination, celebratory approaches, respecting of traditions of diverse, what is your intersectionality being applied and the social justice approach? So just to wrap it up with my answer, sometimes good answers can bring more questions. So I want to invite you with this question. How are we going to respond these additional challenges? We are talking about environmental challenges, in my case with planetary health approach. But how are we going to respond to these additional challenges that are coming from the social, the political, the economical? We need, how are we going to acknowledge the tensions that exist in that complex framework and the opportunities? How are we going to go from the microcosmos to the macrocosmos? How are we going to integrate the individual, the local, the regional, and the global? That's my response, but it's not a conclude response because it's a work that needs to be done by all together. These type of questions need to be responded by all together. And in that is the answer, but also the questions for each one of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Of course, you're really speaking to the realities of really relationality and how do we need to change all of this in a holistic way. I want to come to question, Kyong Ju, in your own context, because you really spoke to issue of culturalism, art labor, which we really talk about. So thank you for bringing that lens in terms of labor relations and ordering. How do you, going back to this question, what kind of support and how are those big organizations in your own context? It may not be white arts, it may be particularly organizations that are like government-centered organizations, the big corporations that are funding art projects in your country and all of that. What are those, how are they supporting what you're doing in your own local context? Thank you.
네, 한국어로 말할게요. 네. So I will speak in Korean. It's okay. So, 한국에서 일단은 개인적으로는 저도 오랫동안 예술가로서 활동을 했기 때문에 예술가가 갖고 있는 기본적인 창작에 대한 고민도 있지만 저는 또 사회 문제에 굉장히 관심이 많았기 때문에 제가 관심 있는 사회 문제와 제가 창작하는 것들을 어떻게 연결해서 새로운 창작의 형태를 만들 것인가를 사실은 굉장히 오랫동안 고민을 했고, 제가 이제 독일에 살다가 한국에 들어온 게 2001년인데, 이제 그때부터 좀 뭔가 새로운 예술을 하고 싶었어요. 그 사회 혁신, 예, 사회 혁신과 관련된 일을 하고 싶었는데 그것이 그 NGO나 뭐 그런 뭐 정부의 어떤 기관의 행정직으로 일하는 그런 혁신이 아니라 예술가가 갖고 있는 상상력과 창의성을 가지고 사회 안에서 어떤 조각처럼 새로운 것을 만들고 싶다는 아이디어가 있었고 그렇게 해서 제가 샐러드 극단이라는 단체를 만들게 됐어요. 그래서 그 샐러드 극단을 만들 때 저의 컨셉이 뭐였냐면 그 제가 예술가로서 느꼈던 예술 노동에 대한 가치 인정이 없는 사회. 그런데 저는 이주민들과 일하고 싶거든요. 이 극단을. 그런데 저는 프로 이주민이랑 일하기 쉽지 않았어요. 왜냐하면 그 아시아에서 온 대부분의 이주민 분들은 고향에서 한국에 온 목적이 경제적인 목적이었거든요. 그러니까 당연히 그 고향에서 예술을 접할 기회가 없던 분들이 많아요. 그리고 저는 본인들의 고향에서 예술을 했던 분들과는 일하고 싶지 않아요. 왜냐하면 제가 제 예술을 통해서 보여주고 싶은 것은 그 경제적인 그 층위들, 그 지위, 경제적인 것에 의해서 결정되어진 그 층위, 그 다음에 이 아시아도 그 뭐 동아시아, 그 다음에 뭐 그 동남아시아 막 이렇게 그 안에서도 굉장히 많은 차별이 있거든요. 그런 것들을 보여주기에는 제가 그때 느끼기에는 이 극단을 소셜 시어터로 만들어서 여기에 참여하는 것은 진짜 자기들의 이야기라고 느낄 수 있는 제가 쓴 대본에 대해서 그런 사람들이 당사자로서 배우가 아니라 무대에 올라가는 거다. 그리고 아이러니하게도 저는 그때 이미 어떤 생각을 했냐면 이 컨텍스트를 가지고 나는 기업에게서 돈을 받겠다. 왜냐하면 그 기업의 사회공헌이라는 것이 굉장히 미비했고요. 대부분이 뭐냐 문화예술 쪽은 지원하지 않았어요. 그래서 저는 반대로 또 이것도 도전해보고 싶은 마음이 굉장히 컸거든요. 그래서 어떻게 내가 갖고 있는 이 아이디어를 이 비전문적인 이주민 분들, 일반 시민분들, 노동자분들, 그다음에 인신매매성으로 한국에 온 결혼 이주민 이런 분들을 데리고 연극이라는 걸 한다고 하고 이게 사회적으로 굉장히 가치 있는 일이니까 기업에서 사회공헌 기금을 내라. 당신들이 얻은 그 수익의 일부를 이런 좋은 곳에 환원해야 된다라고 설득하는 그런 과정들이 저로서는 또 그게 굉장히 예술적이라고 느꼈어요. 왜냐하면 거기에 많은 아이디어가 필요했거든요. 그 사람들을 설득하기 위해서. 어, 그리고 저는 이것이 우리가 시장 경제를 이야기하고, 그 다음에 내가 하는 일들이 굉장히 가치 있는 일이지만, 어디에서 그 돈이 오느냐, 어떤 기업에서 돈이 오느냐, 이런 것들도 고민을 해야 되지만, 저는, 대기업에서 노동자들을 착취해서 벌어들인 그 돈을 꼭 따서 저희 극단에서 일하는 이주민 분들이 월급을 받게 하고 싶었고, 그리고 저희 공연을 초청하는 분들이 돈이 없는 분들이 많으니까, 정말 여러분들은 상상을 못 하실 거예요. 저희가 지역에 공연을 많이 다녔는데, 버스도 안 가고 이런 곳에도 저희가 24인승 버스를 타고 다 같이 움직여서 공연을 가는데, 가면 학생들 인터뷰해보면 한 번도 공연을 본 적이 없대요. 한국 학생들인데. 그래서 그런 지역을 저희가 다녔는데, 그래서 저는 이게 되게 이제 구조적으로 봤을 때는 기업의 사회공헌 기금, 그 기업은 굉장히 큰 대기업들이 많았거든요. 그것이 저희들의 활동에 오고, 또 문화소외계층에서 그 공연을 볼 수 없고 예술을 접할 수 없는 사람들이
Wow.
무료로 공연을 보는 식으로 이렇게 구조를 짰고, 그것이 잘 굴러갔어요. 잘 굴러갔고 굉장히 의미 있었다고 저는 생각하거든요. 근데 이제 제가 의미 있었다고 생각하는 것은 그런 시스템을 저희 샐러드에서 만든 것이 저는 굉장히 의미 있다고 생각합니다. 네.
Wow. Thank you. I know that we don't have much time. I love to dig deep, but one thing I observe with the three of the presentation is I love the way you're really evaluating and putting statistics to your work. Like from Madi to Kion to Saka, how many number of people have been on have walked the trail, how many audience number you have, how many, where you did your project in California, Madi. It's really interesting. I won't go into that, but just wanted to spot that because I think that from a reporting standpoint, funding and all of that, it's really interesting how you're thinking about that. I want to come to Serkan, and I want to pivot that question a little bit because I'm very mindful of our time. There's a question from Rebecca here that I want you to speak to, Serkan. Said, as you have all built these programs and ways to interact, the curiosity is how you have messaged your work to people not directly involved in social change work, where they're working, where she's working, is always looking how to connect to that person who is not part of this work already. To have people engage with your project, how do you market? How do you shape it? How do you share it, your work, to connect to the larger population with the level of success, the three of you, obviously, that you've spoken about, particularly for how are you able to shape and market that, present your work? And I would just want Serkan to respond to that, because again, I'm very mindful of our time. And if we have time, we can come back to both Madi and Kyong Ju. So Serkan, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Taiwo. But let me just comment a couple of things. The previous question, because I was preparing a couple of things and wanted to comment on that.
Okay.
It won't be long, but just so. Yeah. So how was the question was like the support mechanism. Okay. So basically, I can comment on two places. Let's say, since I'm producing in Istanbul, but on the other hand, I've also produced a couple of things and in Canada. So I just want to briefly comment on both, starting with Istanbul and Turkey. So basically, the support to socially engaged art, I mean, unfortunate to say, is terrible. Like terrible because of two things. I mean, Dennis also her research is mostly about that. He could comment on this more. But like my understanding or my perspective is because of two things. First, where the support could come from two places. Of course, public, government, that means, and private, right? So the public, in terms of Turkey, because of the conservative government that we were having, the political Islamist government for the last 20 years, I mean, there is almost no public funding to visual arts. Different, like visual in terms of the contemporary stuff. I'm talking. It's more like traditional conservative types of art production would have been supported, but the art and activism which deals with the contemporary issues are not being supported, unfortunately, because of the agenda of the government. It's not there in their cultural agenda. And it's actually one of a big discussion in these days in terms of the political thing. So there's one thing. This is one thing. Because of that, socially engaged art practices or that kind of practitioners could only find some support from the private institutions, which namely, I would say, like the Istanbul Biennial, for example, being an important institution for last couple of decades, mostly 3 decades, I think, more or less, 3-4 decades. But obviously, it's a private foundation, and the agenda of a private foundation is also being, like not essentially public interest. There is a public concern, but it's not a pure public interest. So therefore, the part that has been given or shared with the socially engaged practice is very little, and not it's not substantial, so because of this frame. I mean, the only way that socially engaged practitioners could create some sort of funding from their networks and their surroundings, like in cooperation and collaboration. And the consequences of the situation is that like unfortunately there are not many types of productions coming from, appearing from in this environment, in this ecosystem. Yeah, so that's one thing. I just wanted to frame a little bit the Turkish context. The Canada context, I mean, I'm not perhaps the right person to speak on that, but just let me have one observation that I had, because I've also created a show recently in Ottawa and had encountered with some artists and institutions, and have kind of an impression about how the things going on over there. I may comment on my behalf of being an international artist. That's something which has not been yet well discussed in Canada, I believe, in terms of at least the discussions that I took place in. So most of, as we all know, most of the funding to the practitioners comes from art council or federal government art budget, or the regional governments like the Ontario and etc. And they are solely and particularly is for students and for the people who would have permanent residencies. So for the international artists who are actually trying to do things, practitioners, not only artists, but like creators, activists, creative people, could not have receive support most of the times. So that's how I realized what I realized, and that's, I think, a kind of a like one of those gray zones that people don't want to kind of neglected areas, though, because many things are happening in Canada and because of the immigration processes and problems, etc. So that too I wanted to highlight in Turkey and Canada. For the question of Rebecca, it will be very short. So how do you distribute and share your work? So particularly the work about this walking trail project was an art project, essentially art exhibition project, what I'm trying to say. So it has started as initiated and first shown in the Istanbul Biennale, and therefore it has been circulated with the publication of the map and etc. But then after, it turned into kind of a guerrilla activity, like a soft guerrilla kind of an activity. And it, because of the certain environmental and urban discussions taking place in the country, it has its up and downs. Whenever the urban discussion is on peak, so people again remember the trail and walk on it, share it through social media. Social media became a platform, ear to ear, kind of this distribution happening. So yeah, so that's basically it. Social media and public conversations. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I don't know if I know we're a few minutes ahead already, and we want to respect people's time, but we just want to give Marty and Kyong Ju just your final thoughts Yeah, quickly. And and also possibly Rebecca, you want to speak to that? I realized that I basically read your question. I would have allowed you to actually. So my sincere apologies on that. If you want to speak to that, please, you have the floor to do like a minute or so, if that's okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Taiwo. No, you did a lovely job of reading the question. It really, it's exactly as Serkan expressed. Sometimes I feel because I'm motivated by social change, that is not the most appealing way often to share it with the public, and trying to find those ways where it can naturally, I'm going to say pollinate, but we can spread the idea, because the idea is to change more hearts and minds. And so it speaks to me a little bit about who I might collaborate with in these sorts of projects. So it goes through different consciousness, goes through different access points for the public, regardless of what fires me up to do it. So that was really helpful. And I'm fascinated by the walking project. I love the arts in nature. So it's been really powerful to learn about that project. Thanks.
Thanks, Rebecca. Madi, over to you.
Thank you so much. I understand this concern of how far our impacts are going. When there is so much work, and we know creative processes, art productions, they take so much, and sometimes it's 1 minute, but how meaningful and how impactful it is. But I want to invite us to reflect on how creativity can touch hearts, and how can we elevate our art creations to soul level. And that's when spirituality is a big component. I didn't touch on that for my presentation because that's a full, deeper world. But we need to acknowledge that the soul level is not to question if we have it, who has soul and hearts, and if we can touch it. So the question of Rebecca speaks about the wishing to get our information or impacts to larger population successfully. Personally, I have found that education is a good way. Art exhibitions, public debates, and also media. Like, that's why we have a podcast. That's why we want to be on TV. That's why I want to influence maybe Hollywood. That's why I want to get to that larger corporations. And that doesn't mean to be commercial. It can still having the essence at the core of that spiritual level. But we need to do the work, and we need to have that clarity when working and collaborating, and then to have those intentions. Then our across communities or broader communities outreach really comes from the seed of the heart towards the seed of the hearts. And then that interconnectedness, the magic then happens. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. I really think speaking about thinking more broadly about spectrum of potential collaborators and how to find ways to connect to them. I want to give Kyong Ju the final space to speak to the question or to give you your final thought before we bring this to a close today. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. 지금
Listening to what other speakers mentioned just before, actually, I also have pondered about those areas as a social artist, but I through the theater salad theater company, when I started in 2009, so every year in December I thought that I had to stop this because I was worried whether I could last long. I could run this organization for longer period of time, because how these kind of socially engaged projects can success, that's the concern. That was our concern. So, but I thought that the participants in this art themselves are my success. I thought in that way. Previously, there were people who succeeded in the mainstream. There are those people, but rather than such a large success, but if participants in these kind of arts, their lives change and they can see the meaningfulness in their lives. I think that is very touching. And even if it's minor, it's small, I think it can be considered a success. I have worked with general citizens and migrant people. So initially, I actually pursued perfection because I was a creator. But I actually started to embrace the meaning that they had. So in our project, I think the criteria of success is different from others. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you so much. I want to also say thank you to Hyun Young for the interpretation. Thank you. We appreciate you. And thank you to Kyong Ju for your thoughts. The piece around lasting success and the impact from the micro to the macro. Thank you so much. We want to say thank you for everybody for being here. It's the second episode in the series, and the third episode in the last piece of the series is on the 8th of May, and the link is in the chat, so please feel free to attend and pass it on to others. You can also check more details about the project on the website. I think there are other things that are coming. There's a conference that is focusing on a part of this that we're running, a panel, a roundtable at a conference for folks who might be interested in submitting an abstract. That is also a special issue we're doing. So there are many things that are beginning to emerge as we begin, because we realize that I think that the theme that we're exploring, there's a lot of interest in it, so there are a lot of opportunities. So we'll love to connect and connect with you. Thanks to our participants. Thank you so much, Sheila. We'll see you there. Gabriel and Danny, thank you. And so with that, I'll pass it back to Denise, and thank you so much for our presenters for their amazing case study and their insight and experience. Back to you, Denise.
No, thank you. That's all that's left to me to say gracias, kamsahamnida, and teşekkürler, and haishka, and hope to see you in our final webinar. Have a great day or night.
Bye, everyone.